Sit.
What time are they starting, you know?
About 10 minutes.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Byron Brazier. I'm the pastor of the Apostolic Church of God. And no, I'm dressed down. I don't have a shirt and tie on like before. But welcome back to the One Woodlawn meetings. This is our first meeting in 4 years. And I am thankful for each and every one of you. For those who are watching via live stream, welcome to this meeting that concerns education and economic development. How do we get back here? And what has taken place? Well, let me just tell you that the One Woodlawn meetings that we did 4 years ago, the mission was to meet quarterly, which we did, and we met for 3 years, every 90 days. And we never had pretty much less than 300-400 people in the room at the same time. And the amazing thing about it is that there was never an argument for 3 years. And so for that, I am thankful. But it really showed the vision of bringing all the people together, not telling you what you were going to get, but telling us how we plan for what we do want. And so, so the One Woodlawn meetings are going to be re-engaged every quarter. And what we deal with are 4 elements to community: education, safety, economic development, and health and human services. Those are the only 4 elements that describe a good community, a growing community, or a not so good community. And I'll explain. If you have high economic development and high education, you will tend to have low safety needs and low human service needs. If you have low economic development and low education, you will have high safety needs and high human service needs. When we, in fact, begin to address not just one thing, but we address all the things all at the same time. We in the network of Woodlawn, we are designed to address each and every element, all 4, all at the same time. And we look forward to presenting back to you the progress of the network of Woodlawn and what we have discovered and what we have discovered together. We have separate boards in each one of those 4 pillars. And once we bring back the safety pillar, we will actually have pretty close to 60 people, volunteers, working for Woodlawn all at the same time. Because each one of those elements have their own boards, and they have their own leadership, and you will hear from them every quarter. But tonight, we're only going to do 2. We're going to do education and economic development. How did we get here? What did we do in the education? Well, before the pandemic, we looked to address all the schools at the same time, all the elementary schools and into Hyde Park High School. But what took place was the pandemic. And for those who might remember that every elementary school in Woodlawn was classified as a level 1 school. We were a unique community where every one of our schools were achieving elementary schools. It didn't matter which one it was, other than Hyde Park High School. So when we went into the pandemic and the Obama Library, the Obama Presidential Center, then focused on Jackson Park and was going through their Jackson Park acquisition. What we had the Museum of Science and Industry, which is one of the greatest museums in the country. You had the Obama Center, and during that time, we were getting ready to do a PGA golf course. And in the middle of all of those things taking place was an underperforming high school called Hyde Park. And so during the pandemic, I said, you cannot have Hyde Park High School across the street from Jackson Park, where OPC is, and have a PGA golf course and a museum, and then have this as an underperforming high school. So we began to have conversations during the pandemic, and eventually, after several conversations, the public schools hired a consultant by the name of Greg Jones. He was the principal. You'll meet him tonight. He was the principal of Kenwood High School. And one of the things that took place was, I said, why is it that Kenwood High School has 110% population and Hyde Park High School has 60%, and they're a mile away? It didn't make a lot of sense to me. So how now do we bring Hyde Park up along with all the other elementary schools? And what you'll see tonight is a plan that we're now working with the Chicago Public Schools on. All the principals in Woodlawn, I met with them 2 weeks ago, all of them are on board. And they're saying, when do we start? And we'll be planning with the WCPC board. We'll be planning with the principals in the next 30 to 45 days, along with members of and executives of the Chicago Public Schools who are also here on tonight. And so I am pleased for that. And then the second element is the economic development. And before the pandemic, we created a plan that the city called the Woodlawn Plan for Redevelopment, but we called it the Woodlawn 2060 Plan. That plan was accepted by the city of Chicago, and it was passed by what is known as the Plan Commission as a plan for Woodlawn. And you can see that plan on the Chicago Planning Department's website. That plan is there. What we want to do now is to the plan that we already studied for, that the community already agreed with, we now have to update. And there are several new elements that we're not going to say, here's what you're going to get. We're going to say is, here's what we are all going to plan for. And we're really looking for you all's participation in this process. And then you'll also hear about what is known as Woodlawn Central, which is the church's initiative that looked at the 2060 plan. And I was approached and asked if we could model on the church properties the 2060 plan as a catalyst project. And I agreed. So you'll see both of those tonight, along with the education plan. All right, so I'm looking forward to it. That's preachers can get long-winded, and that's it. It took me 10 minutes to get all that out, and I am thankful because we got Greg Jones, who is here. My son Jay Byron is going to present the economic development plan, and so let us greet Greg Jones. Let's give him a big hand.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Gregory Jones. I, as Dr. Brazier mentioned, I previously served as, from 2012 to 2018 to be exact, as the school principal for Kenwood Academy High School in the Hyde Park neighborhood. There I managed programming for young people from grade 7 through grade 12. And for those that's familiar with Kenwood and just public high schools here in the city, it was the 4th highest performing high school based upon SQRP, regardless of neighborhood status. So right at the level as some of the most selective schools in the city. Second, it was the highest performing neighborhood high school in the city of Chicago. It was the highest rated academic center in the city of Chicago. And we believe it just provided what we hope was the right type of educational experience for the young people that it served. Currently is under the leadership of Karen Calloway, who is doing a phenomenal job. Is currently the 3rd largest, I believe, school in the city. So if you've noticed, while schools that serve predominantly African-American students have had a significant decline in enrollment, Kenwood has a significant incline. And so if you build something good, people will come. And if you treat people well and have a good product, people will come. One of the biggest misconceptions that folks have in public education, and I'll say this is important, and I'll share a few other things before we get to the presentation. For some reason, there's this belief that Black families want something different from their children other than what other folks want for their kids. So what people have sold us historically in this country is snake oil when it comes to education. So what you're not going to hear from us tonight, you're not going to hear me talk about some type of special program. You're not going to hear me talk about ideology. You're going to hear me talk about hard work that can potentially lead to outcomes for the kids in this community. So in my time in public education, I've had, perhaps like any school leader, you're going to have some disagreement with parents. is part of the journey. One thing I've never, and sometimes there's some things that I didn't think sometimes families were doing well as it relates to the school, but I've never met a mother that did not want better for their child than they had for themselves. Regardless of how the parent relationship was with the school, regardless of how the student was performing. And unfortunately, in our community, the greater city of Chicago, we don't leverage that human asset to create a better experience for young people. So that's my background. I currently serve as, I left CPS in 2018, and I currently serve as the Chief Executive Officer for an organization. My headquarters is here, the Academy Group. I have offices in Boston, Massachusetts, and the third one is actually in Los Angeles, California. And this is just a plug. If you know families who have young people that's currently in third grade, if they're interested, they should apply for the program. So they're looking for seats for young families. So it's an investment. It's a free program. There's roughly a $325,000 investment from the time the young person is 9, present day dollars, until they graduate from college. That includes paying off any student loan debt when they graduate from college. So what we're trying to do is in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Boston is take the public school experience and add what affluent families are able to provide for their young people that unfortunately we're not able to provide for young people here in the city. So it's a huge financial commitment through the companies in which we own. So that's a plug for my current work. But tonight I'm going to speak with you about the network of Woodlawn and its plan for education. And I'll share something before providing the historical context that's underscoring what Dr. Brazier alluded to. And I've never spoke to folks and used my phone. Like I see a lot of young people now pull up their phone and start reading from it. It's the first time I've ever done this. But it's a few pages here, slides that I'm going to read. Why? Because I think it sets the tone for the why. I had a talk in Los Angeles and one most recent downtown Chicago last week in which I talked about the relationship between education and wealth. And one of the challenges that we face as career educators, and Dr. Miller can speak to this, is that we're so hyper-local, is that sometimes we fail to realize why we do school. Fundamentally, the purpose of public education is to change the quality of lives for people. And if we don't do that right, the condition that we're in this city and other parts of this country where we see a growing wealth gap will persist. And unfortunately, young people that look like me tend to have the most challenges. So I'll share a few things with you and just bear with me, but I think it speaks to the why. This is from Matthew Desmond. It's a book actually about poverty. It says, after wages began to rise in 2021, following worker shortages, rents rose as well, and soon people found themselves back where they started or worse. Since 1985, rent prices have exceeded income gains by 325%. So the price to live in a given city is increasing at rates in which wages are not. The next one, 4 years after graduation, Black students owe an average of 188% more than white students borrow. Now this one here I think is catchy. The median wealth held by Black families with a college degree, that's people like me and like most of you in the room, and student loans, by the time the head of household is 65 years old, I'm 53, is about $61,000 versus roughly $422,000 for white families under the same circumstance. And I'll close with this one. He felt his poverty without a cent, without a home, without land, tools, or savings. He had entered into a competition with rich, landed, skilled neighbors. To be a poor man is hard, but to be a poor race in the land of dollars is the very, very bottom of hardship. This is 1903 W.B. Du Bois. So nothing, very little has changed. And so when you talk about education, I don't think the cavalry is coming. So if we're going to change education, the quality of education in this community for young people, the people in this room, people like you, are those that's going to be responsible for it and fighting like to make sure things change. So how do we, because there's a giant elephant sitting in this room, poor performing schools that serve African American children. How do we tackle it collectively and move it out this space? So it's going to take a lot of hard work. So before we dive into the presentation, I was visiting for work, my full-time work, Dallas, Texas. And this is worth sharing because I believe that as a school leader, we did the best work possible for the young people we serve. And so it's a private school that I was visiting, all girls, from kindergarten through 12th grade, close to 1,200 students. And by the show of hands, how many of you all remember a TV show called The Facts of Life? All right. So I like Tootie and Blair. And so you go into the school, girls have nice uniforms. It's like TV. You see them skipping. These are younger kids. Then you see parents who are volunteering, feeding the students. Then you see older students like the ones I serve, lounging around the campus, studying, but really enjoying the freedom of being high school seniors. So I asked the lady who was giving me a tour. Private school costs close to $60K. So I said, what type of math courses do the students take in middle school? And a lady said, well, she don't know I'm an educator. She think I'm just a businessman. She said, well, my daughter was in the school. She's currently an undergraduate student at Williams College, highly selected private school in the Northeast. She said, but when she was in middle school, no different than the students now, they take algebra with trigonometry, and geometry. And when they start high school, they start with pre-calculus. The graduation requirements for the Chicago Public School is exactly what those kids take in middle school. So my argument today is when I talk about a plan, what I encourage every person in this room to think about, and it's going to be really hard and somebody's going to get upset with me for saying this. How do we mobilize around doing hard things? Or why do we keep always talking about why we can't do hard things? Because if we want to make sure the young people that lives in this community have the same competitive advantage or something similar as the young people that go to the school in Dallas, we have to do things differently. So I was contracted by the Chicago Public Schools to support the Woodlawn community, and with Hyde Park High School being the anchor school, meaning that all of the feeder schools would feed into Hyde Park if they choose to go there, that is a quality school and have the same type of programmatic experiences that many of your children, grandchildren have found in other public schools in Chicago. And we built a model that we're going to talk about today and ask you to give feedback at some point in time, but ultimately get behind it. Now, so the community centered around the data that we looked at the Chicago Public Schools, along with the University of Chicago Education Labs, supported the project with making sure we had the right information to design. And we learned that the vast majority of young people from the attendance boundaries that feed into Hyde Park High School did not attend Hyde Park High School. Now, this is not uncommon, but we want to make certain that the young people who live here know that they have a quality public institution nearby. So these were the network of Woodlawn schools that we've identified. And you would notice that there are a few schools here that's not in the Woodlawn attendance area, but I'll explain why they were added. So you have Carnegie, Dulles, Fisk, Bret Harte is in Hyde Park. Kenwood's attendance boundaries. However, the vast majority of the kids live in Woodlawn. So we didn't want to exclude Woodlawn children, even though the school was in someone else's boundaries. Hyde Park High School, Ray Elementary School, very similar. They have a significant portion of their students who attend Ray that currently live in Woodlawn. Emmett Till, Wandsworth, and Woodlawn. So these are the schools that's built for this plan. So part of this, and I'm not going to read the executive summary, we identify what a well-resourced family will provide for their student from the time that they enter kindergarten through 8th grade. And what we learned was that they accumulate 1.2 additional years of education just from their parents spending time with them in summer programs. So that's increasing the gap, because families who are not resourced, like I wasn't as a young person, I grew up in Abla on the west side. The summertime, I stayed at home. Mother went to work, just like many of you all probably remember. And then I went and enjoyed the summer, got some free lunch in the basement somewhere, roast sandwiches as one to fruit. And I did this every summer. My counterpart that lived in a different part of the country or the Chicagoland area was in camps. They were studying abroad. So this program is built to close that gap. I won't go through the timeline, and I'll kind of close with some of the goals here. So we wanted to build a program from grades, the middle grades, all the way through high school graduation. Second, we also wanted to focus on academic acceleration, doing hard things for capable children, an advisory model to support young people with their socio-emotional needs, a credit recovery program, because there is the elephant in the room for students who are not doing very well. We hope that that's like a pop-up shop, because if we still focus on credit recovery 5 years from now, then we failed in our mission. And lastly, create an academic model that retains students who live in Woodlawn. So it's 4 components. The first component that I'll talk about is known as the middle school, early high school program. The second one is the middle school acceleration program. The third one is a college preparatory program that has access to several strands, which includes data science for students that's interested in math, for students that's interested in particularly careers in which they're using high-level metacognitive thinking, as well as college prep for students that's interested in the performing arts, photography, and other things that interest kids. Embedded in that is the same type of programming that you would get at the most selective high schools that exist in Chicago. I would say this: why are we the ones leaving our neighborhoods looking for better education? So in the last program is the credit recovery and academic advising program that we'll talk about shortly. So the middle school, early high school program is students starting in 7th grade. They will stay in their elementary school. So I'm not going to pull them out like I did and send them to an academic center at Kenwood. They will take high school classes starting 7th grade. So when they graduate from 8th grade, they would have taken a full year of high school while still in 7th and 8th grade in the high school setting. So roughly 35% of their school day will be at Hyde Park High School, and the remaining 65% will be at their respective elementary school. In 7th grade, they would take Spanish 1, honors level. They would take computer science honors level. This is 7th grade. During the summer, no one staying at home like I did. Maybe watching some kids for somebody else, right? But they'll take photography. Why did I pick photography? Kids want to enjoy the summer. So it's a photography course using cameras. 8th grade, they would take Spanish 2. They've had 2 consecutive years of a language. Most kids in our community don't get this until sophomore year of high school. They would take high school biology in 8th grade, and in the summer, they would take algebra or geometry for high school credit. So they would graduate with 6 high school credit hours, which is equivalent to having a full year of your freshman year covered. So that puts them on par with the students in the academic center at Whitney Young, Lane Tech, Lindblom, place that I headed, and Brooks, and Taft on the far northwest side. But nationally, it puts them on par with the kids at the school I talked about in Dallas. So what we're thinking here, we're not using standardized test data. The admissions criteria for this is a B average in school. So it's not taking the 1%, it's trying to capture as many kids as we can. 97% attendance rate. Got to go to school. Principal recommendation, teacher recommendation, and parents have to be engaged. So we're not saying, hey, we're going to take 4 kids from each school. So we're trying to capture as many kids in this program as possible. There's a reality, and the elephant still sits in the room. Every kid will not start in this program. I worked in schools for 22 years. I'm not silly to say that this is ambitious, but we want to grow into this. So the next component is a skills acceleration program. And this is for a larger population of students who are doing school as well as they can, but we want them to get better. So during the school year, they would receive 2 things: high dosage academic support 3 days a week, in addition to their 4 school day, built around the school's schedule. So the school principals determine how this will look, not us. This will follow which doesn't happen in schools. If we have anyone who's ever worked in elementary school, middle school students do not get any counseling. The case manager the counselor is the case manager, right? So they have a direct counseling service once a week. And during the summer, this is all kids, unless they're traveling somewhere or if parents sign off that they have an equivalent or better program. Hold them accountable. They'll participate in the summer academy, which includes academic advising, tutoring, career exposure, and fitness. This would happen 7th and 8th grade year. So these are the students largely that's entering high school, either at grade level or well below grade level. So how do you close those gaps and go from 1 year of learning to 1.2, 1.5? You have to start in the earlier grades with a more deliberate approach. So this is all students that attend the feeder elementary schools, including Bret Hart and Ray. So this is middle school. The summer enrichment, I don't have to spend a lot of time talking about because I kind of spoke to it here and I don't want to use a lot of time to be repetitive. So let's look at high school. In high school, there are 4 college preparatory models. And college preparatory, I'm thinking about a scope and sequence, which tells you what kids will do in high school. That's equivalent to what happens in the best schools in the Chicagoland area. That includes even the better suburban schools in the North Shore. The second component is what we'll talk about soon is a program for mid-tier kids. So the first college prep program is traditional college prep. We'll look at the courses. The second one is college prep plus data science and plus AP capstone. Raise your hand if you know what AP capstone is. All right. How many schools in our community offer it? None. Kenwood. That's it. Initially, Kenwood's one of the pilot schools. You had to apply for it. I kept fighting and fighting. But this is saying that students have ability to do college level writing and research while in high school. And they get a separate diploma at Hyde Park. The third program is college prep plus contemporary dance. So they still have a traditional college prep program, 4 years of everything, but all of their core elective courses would be taught in the dance studio at Hyde Park. So we built a model around the physical plant. The fourth college prep program is college prep, same rigorous courses, plus 3 years of photography. So what would happen in that program, all of the students will take 4 years of math, a minimum of 4 years of math, minimum. 4 years of English language arts, 4 years of the social sciences, 4 years of science, and 4 to 6 years of a world language. If you spend time and look at what is offered at the most selective schools in our city, that's what they take. Now, someone is going to say, can they do that work? Yeah, if they work hard. Will they have the same output tomorrow? No. But this is the multi-generational solution. And it has to start somewhere. The next program is called the C School. And this wasn't part of the original design. And the folks in this community, Dr. Brazier, really pushed us to make sure that we're not losing students. So the C School is for students that currently attend Hyde Park that have a GPA below a 3.0. And it is open to any student, but it is for students that specifically designed who are not high achieving. So the C School is that it's a certificate-based program in partnership with the City Colleges of Chicago. And it's designed to provide upper high school students starting in 11th grade with a career pathway. They would earn at least 16 transferable college credit hours and a basic certificate while they're in Hyde Park. This is also embedded within the IB program that currently exists at the school. So the 4 programs that they can participate in and get a certificate, which allows them to stay in a 2-year institution and graduate for free. It allows them to also work. The first one is the Child Development Preschool Program. The second one is a community health worker. The third one is criminal justice, public police services. And the last one is cybersecurity. So what this means is that each day at the school year, they will take 2 university level or college level classes a semester while at Hyde Park. The classes ideally would be taught at Hyde Park. Upon completion, they will receive a certificate and they'll have a semester of college under their belt. Think about what I'm suggesting here. This is a C School for students that we never talk about. So you're looking at your mid-tier performer, a student that mostly gets C's in the school that's not being forgotten. Because on the front end of this conversation, I talked about kids just graduating and being part of that low stagnant wages for the next 40 years. So there's this part of the design to allow them to continue with getting credentials that allow them to move forward. Now, this may be dated. This was designed in 2021, and we're open to considering other certificate-based programs, but this is a path in which we've talked about. The last one is, and we spent some time in Naperville. They have a program. It's a credit recovery and academic advising program for students who are credit deficient. And all of our high schools, I'll share this with you. When I got to Kenwood in March 26, 2012, we had 254 students who were demoted. 33% of the eligible population were not in their right grade. I left in 2018, we had 7. So it's possible. So now people say, it's a good school. It's a different school in 2012. And Cynthia and those that was around know that. With great kids. So it's not a criticism of children. We just have to do better by children. So this program allows the students that currently attend Hyde Park that is credit deficient not to transfer out of Hyde Park to stay in the communities. They'll still have their traditional school, but they would have an accelerated program for credit recovery throughout the school day that's built into their daily curriculum. So what we've done here was to serve every population of learner that currently exists in our school community. The last part is about this program. If this program is in existence at scale in 7 years, we fail. You should never have a lot of kids that's credit deficient. But in the meantime, we have to be thoughtful, deliberate, and work hard. Now, I would apologize to everyone in the room, and I'll talk about the last part. I didn't sell you some type of special program that's telling you that it's going to fix stuff. I've been in this business a long time and quite frankly do it as well as anyone. You're never going to purchase a program and get yourself out of the problems that you have. That's called capitalism. Our failure as a community is a big industry for someone. And I'm being as candid as I can with you. So if this is going to work, it's going to require for us to do, and it's not a perfect design, obviously, but it's going to require a different mindset and a sole reliance on the people in this room. There's too many smart people in this community for us not to do better. So the last part is summer enrichment. And this doesn't exist anywhere. Actually, I brought this from my company into a private company into a public school. Each summer, this is the high school. We talked about the middle school summer enrichment, and I talked about what we normally do in our community during the summertime. Like I used to come around here, I had moved south, and the train tracks were still up, right, before they took them down, and hang out with a friend of mine on 61st and Ellis, just playing basketball the whole summer. So this summer program is, if you're in Hyde Park, you have access to 5 programs. Pre-college summer program, if you get admitted, meaning that you take college classes during the summer at a university anywhere in the country that admits you. Grades 10, 11, and 12. I'll talk about why this is important. Dual enrollment program, meaning that you take community college classes during the summer for free. 3, study abroad. And we have the partners in line that's willing to work with us. You can study in Central America, Europe, or Asia. 4, an industry field experience program. That's for the C school. So if you're working on your credentials, it's a great opportunity for us to have you placed in some type of paid or non-paid internship. And lastly, accelerated math. You could take an extra math course during the summer. It's 5 weeks at Hyde Park. This is a process known as polishing. Folks have asked me, how do Kenwood get 40, 50, 60, $70 million in scholarship? To make some money, I say it's a secret sauce. No secret sauce. It's polishing kids. Wealthy families do it every day. Private tutor, private college counselor. Make sure their kids are in great summer programs. When they apply for college, they get access to the best schools, which means that when they graduate from college, and I'll give you a few examples, then I'm going to close. They graduate from college with a strong network, and they graduate from college debt-free. They buy a home before they're 25. They have equity in the home before they're 40. They accumulate wealth. Not graduating from college, owing a lot of money, you stuck with the debt, you're helping support your family that's like most of our families that need help. You haven't moved along like their counterparts. So the polishing part allows the High Park graduates. College enrollment is not the goal. Two things you want to focus on: college retention, because if you persist by transferring from school to school, you stay in college at least 9 months longer. You accumulate more debt, even if you graduate. And if you graduate in 6 years versus 4, you've lost 2 years in the labor market, which on average is, if you have a $65,000 a year starting salary, you lost $110,000 of income. So this allows kids to have access to schools that graduate kids in high numbers. It allows them to go to colleges that have large endowments that can help underwrite the cost of college for them. And so they can graduate at a point in time where they earn a great salary and start to build wealth for their families. And I think that gets us out of the condition that we're in. So that's the design. We have a community program that Dr. Brazier has been very, very thoughtful and strategic and smartly building. How do we create wraparound services to make certain that some of the unique challenges that we face in our community, that we not only support the student, we support that home. And that is what pulls all of this together. So I thank you. I know I went a little long, but I try to give as much context as I can. So thank you all.
We'll be having follow-up meetings on this. And in addition, for anybody who wants to, they say, I want to work on the WCPC board, I want to work in this area, make sure that you see Dwayne Bailey. He's right here. Stand up, Dwayne. Make sure you see Dwayne Bailey before you go. And he'll take your name, and then we'll make sure that you have a place to utilize your skills for this endeavor. Next is J. Byron Brazier, who is going to present concerning the economic development plan. And so let's give him a big hand.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As usual, it is always a pleasure and an honor to stand before you, my friends and family and neighbors, about this amazing community that I got to grow up in, especially in this church. I remember the building that we're standing in right now was vacant buildings with broken out windows, and me and my friends used to throw rocks through the window. And those are the types of memories that I have of being in Woodlawn, where Vito's was across the street. We had the Church's Chicken right here over on 63rd and Kenwood. And we've come a really long way. And one of the things that I'm really honored to do is to work with my father, because this is not just a project. This is a legacy that I actually get to follow in my grandfather's footsteps, as he created the Woodlawn organization with several others in Woodlawn. So this is, Woodlawn is very near and dear to my heart. I live in Washington Park. A lot of you know that I've been in and out of the city and for a very long time. I lived in New York and LA and Dallas. And what it really is about creating networks and understanding how talent gets disseminated. And you go out of home and you bring back all of the information that you have learned so that you can benefit the place where you come from and the place that you love. And so I want to thank two of my teammates who were able to make it here today, David Wiltz and Tanya Sam. We're missing our other counterpart, Wells Davis. I'm sure he's online. I want to say thank you to him. And as David and I were talking one day, he said there's a quote, and the quote is, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been fighting a long time. And instead of fighting this existing reality, I think where we are is actually creating new models. And this room is a testament to that new model. And that is the network of Woodlawn. And so when I came on to work with Dr. Brazier, I said, so what is the network of Woodlawn? What is it you do? And he brought out his boards and he started showing me all the graphs and saying, you know, this is the education and economic development, health and safety. And so I sat about a year just to watch and to observe and to understand. And I said, well, then how does the economic piece work? He said, well, the idea is to create Woodlawn, the network of Woodlawn, as a community developer organization. And so my background in packaging development and urban design and community development on the international side for tourism and entertainment, I said, well, if you are a community developer organization, then what's your project? And so he said, well, you tell me. I said, well, I'll be happy to. And so I did it's a pre-pandemic, we started doing some discovery. We went around to, the different stakeholders and the different residents and quad leaders. And we just would do a series of interviews. And I got to really understand the divide that was happening from the east side of Cottage Grove to the west side of Cottage Grove. And a lot of people on the west side of Cottage Grove were saying, well, we're not going to be touched for another 10 years. And I said, well, why do you say that? They said, because everybody wants everything on the east side, because that's where all the value is. And so then some standpoints it's right, because in real estate, if you're close to the lake or the park or the transit or the university, it tends to be market rate luxury. When you tend to be closer to the cemetery, to the train tracks, to the Dan Ryan, what we call natural barriers, then there's a little lesser value that has been scaled, in the industry. And I said, well, as a thinker, I said, well, how do we make sure that One Woodlawn stays One Woodlawn in every aspect, especially in the development side? And so as my team and I were going through the community and walking around, and you've got 3 closed down schools in Woodlawn, and then 1 vacant school in Washington Park, which is a bookend to Woodlawn between State Street and King Drive. And so you got Wadsworth, which is over on 64th and University. You've got Fisk, the old Fisk, which is on 61st and Ingleside. You've got the North Building on the Till campus, which is 64th and Champlain. And you've got Betsy Ross, which is on 61st and Wabash. And those 4 schools actually are assets. And they've been sitting around for a long time. And I know we've been trying to campaign to obtain those schools, but the city runs on an old model. And so instead of fighting the city, we're going to give them a new model that says, this is how the project works. And so we're looking at the project from an infrastructural point of view, where you have a physical infrastructure, which is your architecture, your design, your utilities. And then you have a digital infrastructure, which is your Wi-Fi, your carbon fiber, your cybersecurity, security, and data collection, data management. And then you have communications, which is knowledge sharing, which is the platforms on how we get our information, how we share information, and then the economic infrastructure that talks about how you circulate the dollar. So a lot of people, I think this has been said over and over again, that our dollar doesn't stay in our community very long. And because our dollar doesn't stay in our community very long, there's very little equity that we have to pull from to make sure that when we need something, we don't have to go to the city or to the state, to beg for, a few nickels, because that's really all they're going to give us anyway. So with these infrastructures, making sure that it creates a continuous understanding that that's how the internal workings happen, but the external workings happen with the force schools is they now become cultural districts. These cultural districts we've designed as performing arts, visual arts, retail, technology, and agriculture. So we're talking food, water, shelter. These are some of the very basic needs in what any ecological development would need. It's a little, so you say, well, what about there's a lot of legs to culture as well, but the culture over commerce is how Chinatown stays Chinatown, how Ukrainian village stays Ukrainian village, how Greek town and Little Italy stay ethnically connected while being able to supply an economic circulation within those communities. So what is it that we have here? We can't live in, this can't continue to be the hood. This can't continue to be something that doesn't explain or doesn't give a real representation of who we are, since we actually contribute the most globally, culturally. Everything that we do in our community, you can see across the globe, is always the thing that everybody else does. So we are actual influencers in that space. So you have the Woodlawn 2060 plan, but we like to look at this as a smart community, because within the next 10 years, whether we participated in it or not, AI will be completely integrated into the fabric of our lives. And so one of the things that I've had conversations with a couple aldermen, we were trying to explain to them how some of these economic pieces work. And they said, well, where has this happened before? And I said, well, we actually haven't seen a complete Black community since 1921 at Greenwood. And since the devastation of that massacre, we have no representation, we have no precedent. We can't point to something that says this works for us, right? So we almost have to leapfrog 100+ years into economic and social sustainability, and then leapfrog into the future for what technology is about to come to fruition. And we don't know how they're going to, if they're going to digitize the dollar. We don't know how AI is going to move into our homes, our cars. We have to actually be prepared for that. And so that's why these infrastructures are really important, because it gives a practice to the culture. So if we're talking about generational wealth, we also have to have generational practices. And so that is the concept to making sure that these assets that we have both lead us to economic and social sustainability. And so to repurpose these vacant schools, again, there's technology, agriculture, performing arts, visual arts, and retail. And each one of these destinations will be a mixed use destination, which will have both commercial and residential, and we'll also have an educational component in these specific places, dealing with each of these specific cultures. So the context of Woodlawn, we've got a lot of assets: Jackson Park, 63rd Street Beach, the Museum of Science and Industry, the Midway Poissance, University of Chicago. These are all amazing assets that we have in our community, which is driving a lot of high-level investment wanting to come into our community. And I can tell you, since we've announced Woodlawn Central, we've had multiple billionaires approach us about investing into the community. And some of that comes at a cost. And some of that cost is too high, because what it does is it puts us back in the same condition we were in before, because now they own us, right? And then they get to own us and then leverage us so that they can do something somewhere else in Dubai or India or China. And maybe we have new buildings, but we don't have a new community. So Woodlawn Central is the catalyst that says, we're going to set the precedent for the infrastructures, we're going to set the precedent for the culture, and we're going to set the precedent for the investment. To be quite honest, people say, well, you talked about Woodlawn Central and you were going to be in the ground in 2023. Yeah, we could have did that. We could have did that. But I think it's way more important to be steadfast about the mission and the vision to making Woodlawn socially and economically sustainable through these practices, which is about living, working, shopping, learning, creating, producing, celebrating, lodging, and socializing. These are the things that make us us. These are the things that people love about us, and they love watching us. But in that same space, we should also benefit from what we share with the world. And this really sets another precedent to being able to share that. And so this image is a concept design that me and my friends from New York worked on in 21, 22. And it is really a micro version of this 2060 plan vision that has a theater. It has a technology center, which focuses on AI, AR, and VR, digital resources, data center, call center. We have a hotel, 153 key hotel. There's 870 residential units. And maybe some of you are saying, well, are they for sale? Or are they for rent? How much is going to be affordable? We're working out those details. We want there to be some for sale. We want there to be some for rent, but we have to work out the economic dynamics to make it make sense. There's going to be 30% affordable, and the rest is going to be market rate. We can't have it. And the reason for that is that we can't have a community that's just affordable housing. We have to have a mixed income community that when there's a need to invest privately into the community, there are people here who can do that. So when you look in the West Loop or you look around in the South Loop and you see all these beautiful parks, the city did not build that. Somebody privately invested into everything that you see in their city or in their part of the city. We're 15 minutes from Lincoln Park, but we are miles away in the quality of life. So these are aspects of what I think we can bring here to Woodlawn, is that quality of life. It's starting with Woodlawn Central, and making sure that there are cultural iconography nuggets within the community. So a stairway that has our icons etched into the risers, murals that remind us of our history and our legacy, and celebrate those things. And it's not a legacy of oppression. It's a legacy of innovation. It's a legacy of the creations and the contributions that we've done for the betterment of society and of this world. This is a view from that stairway that I was telling you about, where you can kind of see all of the different elements and the architecture within the campus. Between the high-rise buildings and mid-rise buildings, I was inspired by one of my trips to Australia in Melbourne, where they have these alleyways. And they're beautifully designed. Their street artists are really engaged. They have a vibrant artist community. which is really going to be another element to add into our communications and our cultural building. But this will be a promenade style alleyway. And you can see the bridge, be restaurants, cafes, galleries. This is a view from the high rise where you have amenities, pool, spa, gym. And this is an east facing view of the theater. Theater will be, I'm trying to get about 300 seats because I'm using the precedent of the Briar Street Theater over in Lakeview as the epitome of success on a small theater. That theater created or birthed the Blue Man Group, and the Blue Man Group is worldwide. And I remember back in 1995, somebody mentioned, I said, I don't know who they are, but now they're in Vegas, they're doing this, they're doing that. So big things come out of small places. And this finally is just an overview of the nightscape of the hotel and the lights, and you can see the Obama Center in the upper left. And I'm really excited about how this has been shaping in the last couple years. We are in the process of doing our entitlements, which is getting our permits and our zoning. And so we're working with the city on making sure that we turn this concept into a reality. This is a brief overview. I know it's a little small and you can't see it very well, but I just want to kind of give you an understanding of the whole development process, which you are forming the concept, which we did. We did the feasibility study, which says this is how much it's going to cost. This is what we should expect the state and the city to chip in. There's the subsidies. This is what we will pitch in as developers or incoming developers. And so now we are at the planning and financing stage. So we're right in the middle. And this has probably been the most interesting part because the financial industry is quite unique in the fact that I realize that they don't invest in individuals and they don't invest in institutions. They only invest in infrastructures, which is why it's so important that we as a community are built infrastructurally and able to identify our equity in a very unique way. And I would use Pilsen as an example, which is a predominantly Mexican neighborhood. And I remember when Pilsen began to gentrify, because I did the Lacuna project back in 2010. And I talked to some friends of mine over who lived in the neighborhood, and they were very excited about their community gentrifying. They're like, this is great. It's going to bring, jobs. It's going to bring businesses. We're excited. And that's because they already had a cultural foundation, right? They had their own food. They had their own garb. They had their own language. They had all of those historical things that they were able to take. And it was real easy to then just kind of Tetris these new elements into their community. That's very difficult for them to do with us, right? The thing that it's almost like the oppression that you created was the thing that denied your own access, right? Because we have tons of land on the south and west side that they can't develop because they don't build people, they only build buildings. So when we're looking at, this financing piece, a lot of people were like, oh no, we don't want to deal with the church. We don't like dealing with church because we can't take your land if you don't do it right. Right. So they're very risk averse. And the church is the only and longest standing organization within our community that has the ability to do projects at this level. Woodlawn Central is an $895 million project that could easily go up to $1 billion. And you're looking at the 2060 plan vision, we're talking about $6 to $8 billion for an entire community development, which is driven by community infrastructures and community initiatives, especially when we're saying we want to build our culture, we want to build the people, and we want to build the buildings, right? And we just don't want to build the buildings. We want to own some of these buildings so that way the equity that comes from those buildings ends up back into a trust, right? So that trust then allows you to do home loans, car loans, small business loans, sponsorships, scholarships. That's how the circulation of economics happens when you have a fully scaled project. So for example, the church is not selling any land, but is willing to do ground leases with developers who will then pay a lease every month to the church, right? That's the same concept as the network of Woodlawn is institutional, but it has infrastructures which supports that ongoing economic circulation with leases, right? So getting these buildings means that these buildings need to be put in a trust, which builds out your CD, let's say call it a CDFI. And then that CDFI then funds all of the things that the community needs infrastructurally. So the campus itself is, we've designed it from A to I. The entire campus is about 17.7 acres. That's 772,000 square feet. And the total area that we're developing on the parking lots is 325,800 square feet. Our phase one is F, H, and I. F is a 9-level parking facility, which will be replacing all of the parking for the church for Sundays and Wednesdays, but will also be available for the University of Chicago, as well as the Obama Center, and for visitors who will be coming to Woodlawn Central. So they won't be encumbering the streets. We'll make sure that they have somewhere to park. The idea is to make sure that the community enjoys the process of the development. It's going to be a little noisy sometimes. It's going to be a little aggravating sometimes, but like my mother would say, this too shall pass. Because at the end of this, right, there's certainly a pot of gold, and not in the monetary sense, but in a different sense of having a new model that then works for us. The second part of phase one is A1, A2. This is our largest residential section here. It was about 600 units. Let me go back real quick, because I is actually our first building up, which is an active senior living building. And it's going to be mixed use. So it's going to have commercial on the first level and about 80 units. And those are all there. Most of them are going to be affordable. For the transit access, we have been in conversations with Metra very, very consistently. And we are now looking at working with the federal government, the Department of Transportation, who has money available to help with our development for the new platform, as well as the garage. There's a program called a commuter stop, or commuter parking, where say somebody from Beverly wants to take the Metro downtown. They would come to Woodlawn Central, they would park, and then they would take the train up. So it's also a commuter opportunity as well, which they will almost 100% fund this building, which is really great because parking is very, very expensive. So just to kind of recap, we've got 1.25 million square feet of developable space, 870 dwelling units, workforce housing, market rate housing, some luxury, senior housing, and theater lofts. Our commercial space on ground floor is about 214,000 gross feet. We have a hotel with 143 keys. Our metro station would be about 10 to 15,000 square gross feet. Our performing arts venue will be 21.5 thousand gross square feet. We have an energy facility or microgrid. The microgrid is still up for debate. We want to make sure that the microgrid is not noisy. We want to make sure that we have energy independence as well. So if something were to happen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but somebody like, oh, the grid, they're going to take the grid. Well, Woodlawn would be fine. Yeah, exactly. And that's the element of having energy sustainability and energy independence, is to be ready. If a part of leadership is readiness, and Woodlawn Central, Woodlawn, the network of Woodlawn are leaders. And so I think that we should be ready in every situation, whether it be another pandemic, whether there be a blackout, whether there be a food shortage, because our vertical farming greenhouse is about 530,000 cubic square feet, which renders about 3 tons of produce annually. That will then fund our local grocer, as well as a business model for other grocers in the city, because in the state of Illinois, every grocer must source locally. So there's already a nice business model within the urban farming and vertical farming. So what's next? I want to bring up my colleague, David Wilt, because he and I have been working very closely. I've known David for over a decade. He is an industry professional and probably one of the smartest people that I know. He's created a platform that we're debuting today. Nobody in a big group has seen this platform. And it is designed to streamline the process of planning and streamline the process of development. So what could take a year with the city through planning and permitting and documents, we're hoping that this platform sets a new standard or a new model, which makes the old model obsolete, to be able to get through planning a lot faster. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, because I could never give this platform the just that it deserves. So I'm going to bring David Wiltz up. Give him a big hand, please.
Thank you. Can you help me switch? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank Dr. Brazier and Jay Byron for having me here. This project is amazing. I'm very proud to be a part of it. I've worked on projects all over the world, and I'm from Chicago, and I've never gotten to do a project here. And this is the type of project that the city needs, and it's a new precedent that the whole country needs. And so the platform we're sharing here is a new software platform that my company built, and it's a labor of love. And we're going to give you a tour in the platform. And it's a 3D platform that can be used for collaboration with architects and engineers, but it can also be used for engaging community members and stakeholders like yourselves. And it can also be used for storytelling. And that's what we're doing here, is we've built a tour into the platform to share the Woodlawn project. So we're looking at the loop and the downtown area, and the platform, we can zoom around and take a look at the downtown area in Grant Park. Our project obviously is exactly 8.3 miles south from Buckingham Fountain. And when we fly over to the neighborhood, you can see where the project is in comparison with the 20th Ward. And that's the whole green outline that you see on the screen. We also have our neighbors with the University of Chicago, and so we're highlighting the campus boundary here. And we also have a neighbor even closer with the forthcoming Obama Presidential Center. And it's super exciting to be so close to the Obama Presidential Center, because there's going to be all sorts of people traveling internationally to participate in the programs that they're going to hold there. It will also be a global tourist attraction. And by having our Woodlawn Central project so close to it, there's going to be a lot of synergy between the center and the community. And a lot of that has to do with this 63rd Street Metro stop. which is going to see a lot more action with people coming from the loop and going back up. And what's great about having that the stop adjacent to the site is that this green circle is a half-mile circle. And any urban, what's called a transit-oriented development, like what Woodlawn Central is, qualifies for not just city funding, but state funding and federal funding. And this comes in the form of grants to help planning and also in the form of financing to help the project get built out. And so Woodlawn Central is obviously very well positioned to capitalize on that. Also in this green colored area you see, this is the city has established what's called a tax incremental financing district, which means that the city will help through future tax dollars that it will gain from the project. It will help pay for the streets and the curbs and the utilities in the street and all of that, and work in conjunction with the project to help it get realized. And then this yellow outline that you see is on the record with the city as Planned Development 456. Very exciting name, obviously. But this planned development area was created in 2005 in conjunction with the church. And this is when the on-grade parking lots were established and the zoning was changed. And from speaking with our land real estate use attorneys, we're going to simply be taking this planned development area that's already established, and we're going to amend it for these new uses to benefit the community. And there, as Jay Byron mentioned, there are the 8 different blocks, which we see in blue here. But what's really different about the platform we're using is that we can start to look at all of this in 3 dimensions. And so maybe you've seen like a Minority Report or a movie where before they go in and do the thing that they're going to do, they look at a model of the building, and you're going to come from this way and you're going to come from this way. And I've sat through so many master planning meetings where everybody's looking at static slides with static pictures. And it's like, why isn't this in 3D? Our kids are playing amazing video games that are in 3D. Why aren't we designing communities in a 3D environment? So what we're doing here is sharing the project and looking at it in 3 dimensions so we can really conceptualize what it's going to look like and feel like. And moving on to Block B here, this is going to be, Jay Byron spoke about Block A. Block B is going to be co-working and the data center and office. And then Block C is going to be the office and more residential, retail, and parking. And that's also where the Metro station will be and the head house for Metro. Looking to the south of the site, this is where the district energy plant is going to be. And then this building on Block E is going to be artist housing as well as the performance venue with an outdoor venue as well as an indoor black box theater. On parcel G is going to be the urban farming as well as more residential, and then spinning around to parcel F and H is going to be the parking garage as well as more urban farming and more residential. And then, as Jay Byron said, on parcel I, that's where the senior housing is going to be. And so altogether, you know, there are so many great aspects to this project, and there are so many benefits to the project. It really is going to be an engine for growth, and we're going to leverage this platform and be as frugal with the money as we possibly can, because a lot of money is wasted building real estate, and a lot of people make money from that money being wasted. And we want to make sure every dollar goes to the community and that we're making the biggest difference we can. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it back over.
So I'm really excited about this new model of how we use the planning process and architecture process and planning process. This is what I want to do for the 2060 plan vision, is to have a full model, scale model digitally first, with using the DMP platform, so that way we can show you what all of this looks like, because I believe, as a visual learner, I love to learn visually, and this is a perfect tool to be able to access all of the information. And David is super modest, but this platform does a lot, and it's going to grow. And this is a part of the innovation process that I mentioned earlier as cultural innovation districts, right? We're not Star Trek, we're not in that place. I don't know if any of us will ever see that, but in 2060, somebody who was born in 2029 will be 31 years old. And so we will know somebody who will benefit from what we're doing today in 2060 at the height of their adult lives. And where can we place them when they become 31? So when my brother was up here talking about education, that's exactly what he's doing. He's building a new model because he realizes that the old model is obsolete. And so with this platform, we are now allowing other Black communities, other Woodlawns, to be able to design and to conceptualize at a very high level that we wouldn't be able to do, because to get something like this from a architecture firm, we're talking the minimum $1 million, right? A minimum. And so I'm really happy that we'll be able to do this. And then so since we're having quarterly meetings, this particular meeting was about the physical infrastructure. The next presentation that I want to do, I'm going to bring another team member of mine in from LA, who will then talk about the digital infrastructure along with David, to show and to layer where these particular things sit within the site. The next meeting, I want to bring on Tanya and Wells to talk about the communications infrastructure and what to be expecting once Woodlawn Central is up, as it catalyzes the 2060 plan. So we're talking events, festivals, digital platforms, apps. How do we engage each other in the communications realm? And then I'm going to bring my economic infrastructure teammate to talk about how we circulate those dollars, how we invest them, what's the interest, what demographic does it go to, and what benefits there are. So there'll be an immediate benefit, or an immediate need, a future need, and an extreme forecast. And that will then show how we begin to also invest in goods and services. So each business that emerges from Woodlawn or comes into Woodlawn has a structure and an infrastructure on making sure that dollar circulates within the community. Finally, there's another person that, Doc, do you want to introduce, Dwayne? Or okay, so I want to introduce our executive director, Dwayne Bailey, to stand, and I appreciate your time. And I hope that you've been inspired about what we've presented. And I'm planning to keep you very engaged on the process as we continue to move into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great job. Come on, Woodlawn, you can do better than that. Let's go. I tell you, I am really excited at the presentation that we just heard, but I'm even more excited to just be here and see all of you. Thank you, Dr. Brazier, chairman of the Network of Woodlawn. I want to Let's give Dr. Brazier a hand. I want to recognize the members of the Network of Woodlawn Board that are here. If you would stand up for a moment and just be recognized. Network of Woodlawn Board members. All right. Thank you very much. And there are a couple of quadrant leaders that I want to specifically identify. I've got Sister Lena Bivens and Sister Letice Porter. Lena is over the southwest quadrant and Letice is the northeast quadrant of Woodlawn. Welcome. I'm thanking God right now, though, for allowing us to be here. We haven't met for over 3 years, and we've endured a lot over the last 3 years. We have survived the COVID-19 virus, right? We've survived Trump. And I'm sure we've had personal challenges in our lives that we have come over the last 3 years. So it's just good to be back in this space to plan for our community. Now, Woodlawn has a history of planning, participating in a plan that affects its community, right? And this goes back to the late 50s, early 60s, when Bishop Brazier and TWO started in this community fighting slum landlords and the encroachment of University of Chicago into Woodlawn and things of that nature. So you have a history of activism. And in fact, Woodlawn became a model for not only Chicago communities, but communities all over the country. So if you Google TWO and Bishop Brazier, you'll see a lot of that history coming from Woodlawn. So we're not going to stop doing that, are we? You've had a presentation before you tonight that was very exciting, that should have you very excited about opportunities to participate. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the next steps are. Now, we've already done a lot of work over the last 10 years or so. We've had studies from Gensler and Lisk has done studies. Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill has done studies. We have done a study. And I want to pause and just make sure that we all pray for the family of Maddie Butler. We lost Maddie Butler during the course of the last few years, but they've done a study. So between 2005 and 2019, there have been a number of studies done in Woodlawn to help get us to this place where we're ready to take it to the next step. Starting next month, we're going to have a town hall meeting on March 26th. Write this date down, you all. March 26th. Is it on behind me? Okay, just in case right, you got me. All right, so March 26th at 6:30 p.m. right here at Apostolic Church of God, we will have our first town hall meeting. We were talking about how we would engage the community, and this is the platform that we've selected to engage you, to keep you engaged in this plan. That way you build the community that you want to see instead of the traditional development method of someone else deciding what's good for you, and it gets done that way, and you have no equity in it. But I'm excited about community equity, having a community trust fund. I don't know many Black communities that have that. So you can be the first yet again, and others will come in and study what you did and duplicate that, not only throughout the city, but throughout the country. At this meeting on the 26th, we will discuss the 2060 plan in greater detail, and we will also talk about migrants in the community. So we have, 3 years ago, we didn't have over 600 new neighbors a few blocks away, right? So this is something that we have to talk about, and how that may have changed or affect anyway our dynamic. We will have about 6 to 8 of these town hall meetings between now and the end of the year. We need your participation. How many of you did not get an email about this meeting tonight? Okay, so I want you to be sure that you sign your name up and put your email address on the list outside the door. There's some sign-in sheets. If you didn't sign that, you didn't get an email, that means we don't have your email, your communication information. We need you to sign up so that we can absolutely notify you about these meetings, remind you of these meetings. I think, is there anything else I need to mention before I sit down? Any questions? March 9th, the Woodlawn Summit is coming up. Have you all gotten emails on that? We'll send that email out. We'll send that email out with the flyer. I did get the flyer from Liz, so we'll make sure that we duplicate that. All right, thank you everyone, and we'll see you on the 26th.
I absolutely appreciate you all being here on tonight. Those who are watching by a live stream, I understand there are 100+ people watching by a live stream, and so we think that we are thankful to the Lord for each and every one of you. The next, you got several meetings. The town hall meetings are going to be panels and things of that nature, and that's going to deal specifically with economic development. In May, we'll meet every quarter for One Woodlawn, and you'll get another update on the education committee, the economic development and what we're doing, as well as we'll be starting up the safety group. And so if anybody is here, you say, I want to be a part, make sure, that you put an asterisk by your name or something that says, I want to play. So please do that. And I will get everyone's slides. And if you signed up, I will make sure that by the end of next week, that all of those get sent out to each and every one of you, so that you can look at it and say, I like this. But let me ask you a question. By raising of hands, how many of y'all like what you see? A show of hands, how many of y'all ready to move forward in what you see? All right, raise your hand. That's going to go to the governor. All right. And so I absolutely appreciate you. So thank you so much. May God bless you. Be safe going home. Amen. And I thank the Lord for you. And we'll see you on March the 26th. God bless.